This is the second part of the video on this 8086 monitor where I'll really specifically address the IBM PCBIOS section of the monitor. Just by way of background, in order to kind of debug the BIOS and get the thing working, I used an old 386 board using an AMI BIOS, pretty standard disk setup, and I used the IDE adapter board with a CF flash card to work out all the hard disk parameters. So just going to the monitor itself again, we press Windows E80, we press the O command to bring up the monitor, and K shows all the commands. We hit the X key, which brings up a submenu which really addresses all the IBM PC BIOS tests. This allows you to basically run an MS-DOS system on your S100 computer system. There are a number of commands just to basically test your hardware. For example, the E command allows you to test the interrupt structure for your keyboard input. So if I hit the E command, I hit a K, let's just say K as a keyboard input, it will show you that the K is now put in the buffer, which the IBM PC BIOS would recognize, and you will see, you can see it down here, the flashing of the keyboard interrupt. On the bus, it's actually set up to hit interrupt factor 1. Going back to the menu itself, there are most of the menus are fairly self-explanatory. For example, if you want to test the read-write of a 3.5-inch floppy, you would hit the T command. We say we test reading a sector from side A, starting on track 00, 01 sector. I'll just read one sector. And it just shows you the first first few bytes of the sector itself. You can do the same thing for the hard disk, the CF card, so it'll be the U command, and it takes a little bit of time to initialize the counts. So head 00 in this case. Let's start at sector 01 again. Sorry, that was a track 01, sector 01. And say number sector is 1, and hit carriage return. It will actually read all the sectors, and this just tests that the interrupt 13 code within the BIOS is functionally working correctly to read and write sectors on the CF card. Very important if you want to get MS-DOS or FreeDOS working on this particular system itself. You can look at the boot sector on the floppy by hitting the Y command, and we're going to take the A drive. And this just shows you the basic information that must be on an MS-DOS sector, on the first sector on the disk for MS-DOS to understand the format on the disk. There's the corresponding Z command for the hard disk, which basically goes and shows you the partition table. It's actually reading the partition table on the disk. There's actually 4 potential partition tables on this CF card. We're just using one. You don't really need to understand this to actually get MS-DOS working. There's plenty of write-ups on the web which explains how all these partition tables are structured if you want to know more about it. The most important command obviously is the P command to boot MS-DOS from the hard disk, or the C command to boot it from the floppy. If I press the P command, you will now boot up the hard disk from the drive itself, and you can see that we're now picking up reading, actually, the finished reading cylinder 9, sector 2 on the particular disk itself. A typical MS-DOS read enter the time and date. And if we do a DIR, you will see the few files I actually have on the particular hard disk itself. It does take time, actually, in these large drives to actually complete the DIR. It's the only thing that seems to be slow on these disks. If we do a check disk, it'll show you just the layout of the particular disk itself. So that's the BIOS itself, the one remaining portion I have to do in the BIOS, right now it's talking to the propeller-driven console I/O board. It actually does most, even things like F-disk, correctly. It'll actually lay out on the screen correctly. However, it's a lot slower because you're not going directly to video. One of the cards I will be designing and putting together is an XVGA card, which will use a Cirrus chip, and it truly will be PC compatible. However, that's considerably down the stream. This current BIOS allows you to run most MS-DOS well-behaved programs. And it's the code and more details are explained on the web itself at aspen100computers.com.